In a stunning return to the White House, President Donald Trump has wasted no time in reshaping both domestic and foreign policy during his first week in office. With a flurry of executive orders, he has swiftly reinstated controversial immigration measures, declared a national emergency at the southern border, and rolled back environmental protections. Analysts note that these actions sent shockwaves and sparked legal challenges. Internationally, Trump's powerful stance on trade and military deployment hinted at a renewed assertiveness on the global stage. As supporters celebrate his decisive actions, critics voice deep concern over the implications for American society and international relations. What are the consequences of his bold domestic and foreign policy moves? Welcome to Think Tank.
Donald Trump is his name, and he's there to stay.
As unlikely, impossible is now reality.
We will make America powerful. We will win, win, win. And we will make America great again. Let's do our own. We will very quickly make America great again.
The New York Times has reported that in his first week back in office, President Donald Trump took decisive steps to address past disagreements, including revoking security details for former officials like Dr. Fauci and Mike Pompeo. These moves highlighted his focus on loyalty within his administration. Trump also began reshaping the federal bureaucracy, seeking to replace career employees with those aligned with his own policy. He initiated investigations into the Justice Department and intelligence agencies, focusing on past actions taken during his previous term. These early actions set the tone for Trump's second term, with loyalty and accountability playing central roles in his governance. The Washington Post has reported that the Trump administration has escalated deportations by utilizing U.S. military planes, expediting the process that previously relied on chartered flights. Over 7,300 migrants were deported in the first week of his second term, with some sent to Latin American countries like Guatemala. This approach has sparked concerns, especially regarding the use of military aircraft and the shuttling of deportees. While Guatemala has accepted these flights, nations like Colombia and Mexico have resisted U.S. military involvement. Despite the harsh conditions, many deported migrants, such as Margarita Raimondo, remain determined to attempt re-entry in pursuit of a better life. U.S. President Donald Trump's second term kicks off with a whirlwind of executive orders, controversial pardons, and bold policy shifts. Let us look at this report about the latest developments in U.S. affairs under Trump's new policies.
President Donald Trump's second term has begun with a flurry of actions that have both surprised and concerned analysts. Unlike traditional U.S. presidents, who are often assessed after their first 100 days, Trump has already made significant moves within his first week. He issued over 200 executive orders on his first day. He terminated security details for former officials like Dr. Anthony Fauci and Jim Bolton and revoked security clearances for those who had criticized him. Additionally, granted pardons of over 1,500 individuals involved in the January 6, 2021 Capitol riot, a move seen as rewarding his supporters, sparking legal and ethical debates. On immigration, Trump declared a national emergency at the southern border, reinstating policies from his first term and suspending refugee resettlement initiatives. These actions sparked fear and uncertainty among immigrant communities. Economically, Trump signed orders to boost American energy production, rescinded Biden-era regulations, and withdrew from the Paris Climate Agreement. Internationally, Trump's actions were equally impactful. He has raised concerns by threatening tariffs on European allies and demanding increased defense spending from NATO countries. His actions have been met with both praise from supporters and criticism from opponents, who question the legality and constitutionality of some decisions. Analysts are questioning whether Trump's strong approach will persist throughout his term, potentially leading to internal conflicts within the Republican Party and legal challenges to his executive actions. Despite these concerns, Trump's supporters view his swift actions as a fulfillment of campaign promises, setting a powerful tone for his second term.
I think I'm not allowed to run again. I'm not sure. Am I allowed to run again, Mike?
In just 1 week, President Trump's bold decisions ignited a firestorm of reactions, reshaping the landscape of domestic and foreign policy in unprecedented ways. Providing more analysis about the most recent updates concerning Trump's policies, joining us from Washington is Mr. Joel Rubin, a former U.S. State Department advisor, and from Kentucky, Mr. Ihsan Al-Khatib, a political science professor. A very warm welcome to both our dear guests. And we start off with Mr. Rubin. Sir, how do you view President Trump's approach to governance in his second term, especially regarding the speed and volume of executive orders?
Well, it's great to be with you and with my colleague from Kentucky. And it has been a real whirlwind of activity. And President Trump enacted more than, I believe, 50 executive orders on his first day. His first week, we have seen a variety of initiatives to show that he has authority over the executive branch. And he has really taken Washington by storm. But as all things go, it's never a permanent honeymoon. And I would say we're still in a honeymoon period. And already we saw over the last couple of days a major, what we call a cell phone or a self
Rubin,
goal.
why do you call it or name it a honeymoon period?
Well, you know, he basically has been able to do what he wants to do with very little resistance and overall general approval. And this is because he won the election and he has a Congress that is led by Republicans in both chambers. And so for at least the first week, most of what he did follows up on what he said he would do during the campaign. So it's easy right now, but it's not going to be easy for very long. And we already have seen over the last 48 hours how difficult it is to govern and how the administration already made a major mistake in providing guidance to all the agencies to not spend funds that was then blocked by the courts. And then the next day, the Trump White House said, well, we didn't mean block all funds. We just meant block certain funds. And Congress is upset. So we're already seeing cracks. But for the first week, he definitely was able to do what he wanted and generally got good applause for it from the American people.
Dr. Khatib, how do the executive orders signed by President Trump during his first week be different from his previous term, sir?
Good morning here in the U.S. and good evening to you in Egypt. Trump is a well-known commodity. He's not a new person now. He's well-known, and as they say, promises made, promises kept. He made promises, and he delivered as he promised. And the issue with the executive orders is not an issue of Trump. I remember when Obama was in the White House and he faced resistance from the Republicans What he said is that, hey, I have a pen and I have a phone. That basically he will resort to the executive order route, and he did actually. The
Mr.
agreement.
Rubin, you're referring to Obama, who said he has a pen and he has an office?
Yeah. Yes, and yes, I'm just saying that it's not only Trump that resorted to the executive order way. Obama himself said, "I have a pen and I have a phone." So basically, if the Congress does not work with him, then he'll go by himself, like, and use his authority as president to get to order things. And even the agreement with Iran was an executive agreement. The way he dealt with immigration, Obama was by executive orders with DACA and DAPA. But we have a system of checks and balances. And these checks and balances, the judges basically, are there to stop the president when he overreaches. And Trump saw that in the first term, and he's seeing it now again. And you have all these interest groups that are going to be lobbying. It's not going to be easy. You have these governors of states, you have all these beneficiaries of programs. It's not going to be easy for Trump. But at least Trump will say, I made my promises and I kept them. And I think that's important for Trump and for for the people that voted for him, that he kept his word.
Mr. Khatib, do you read that everybody's happy with his policies, or as we mentioned in our report, that some are with and some are against?
And that's normal. I mean, that's the nature of things. I mean, he's a Republican, he's a populist, and he ran on an agenda that not everyone agrees on. Obviously, he didn't get 80% of the vote or 70%. I mean, it was, I mean, in the large scheme of things, a close election. There are at least 40% of Americans don't like him and don't agree with anything he will do, because 60% said that they're optimistic about the Trump presidency. So you have 40% that doesn't matter what Trump does.
Okay, Mr. Khatib, Mr. Joel Rubin mentioned in his answer now in the program, the first week is it's his term, honeymoon. How do you read his answer, sir?
I don't, I don't think that Trump gets a honeymoon, frankly. I really don't. I think that the Democrats are set on being against Trump. They're very unhappy with what he did with foreign policy as to stopping all programs. Yeah.
Mr. Rubin, do you want to answer?
Yeah, no, if I could gently interject here. Democrats did support already his nominee, for example, for Secretary of State unanimously, as well as supported a very difficult bill on immigration known as the Laken-Riley Act, where a significant amount of Democrats in both chambers supported. So it's not the Democratic Party just resisting and opposing everything at all. And I think that sort of points to the idea that there is a honeymoon. But to my colleague's point, I think that is now turning very quickly this week as opposed to last week.
Mr. Rubin, what role do lawsuits play in House Democrats' efforts to challenge Trump's executive orders, since they don't enjoy a majority in both houses of Congress, sir?
So there are a couple of levels here related to Democratic opposition. Because Democrats do not have a majority in either chamber, there's a real deficit on true power. But there are still ways to try to slow down different executive orders and point out to the American people the problems and create political resistance even amongst Republican voters. So, for example, the lawsuit that has been approved by a judge for a temporary stoppage of the executive order that Trump put in to stop federal spending. That lawsuit was put forward by groups that were affected by it, by American citizens who are in organizations that receive federal funding. There are other initiatives like birthright citizenship that President Trump wants to end. That is clearly against the Constitution. And we have, I think, 22 state-level attorneys general suing against that. And so then, of course, now to your question about it, at the federal level, you have Democratic members of Congress already getting Republican members of Congress agreeing that the president does not have unilateral authority to stop federal spending. Last thing I'll say, it's very important to understand that the spending that President Trump said he wants to stop is spending that was already appropriated for this whole year by Congress, and an appropriation is a bill that becomes law. So it is the law to spend that money. And so President Trump, by saying
Mr.
he will
Rubin,
not
I
spend
don't
it,
want
is
here
breaking
to
the law.
interrupt you, sir, sorry, but to my
Yes.
knowledge, the judges and the judiciary is not okay with what's happening on all domains.
Yes,
Not on
but these
every
are
domain. There are certain issues that they're against, they're not with.
Well, these are temporary injunctions in the courts. And what will then happen is that the president, he has his own lawyer, the official solicitor general at the Justice Department, who will then go to court and appeal. And many of these cases, I believe, will end up at the Supreme Court, which will ultimately decide what is legal and not legal.
So we're going to go to court. Dr. Khatib, how might Trump's immigration policies, especially on deportation and border security, impact the United States' relations with nations like Central and South America, sir?
You know, the issue of immigration is not a new issue. The problem is that under Biden, it just was out of control. I mean, massively out of control. There was a huge crisis at the border that basically the signal sent by the Biden administration is that the border is open and you are welcome to come. And actually, I read in the paper in the beginning of the Biden administration, his DHS secretary saying that we're not saying don't come now, we're just saying wait. And that was when Biden just got into office, we're saying wait because we're not ready. So basically the message was the country is open. And as a result, millions came.
Country is open to what, Dr. Khatib, sir?
Say it again?
The country is open to what?
The country is open to illegal immigration, basically. Imagine the head of immigration saying to the world that the border is open to illegal immigration. That was the message. So millions came.
Sorry, sir. I need to understand this part because I don't understand your answer. You are saying that the country, the United States, is now open to illegal immigration.
When Biden.
You're saying Biden. You're not saying Donald Trump.
When Biden. So this is the background of the problem: is that all these millions of people that came in are the reason you have this hardline, Trump hardline. And American people were very angry with the idea of having millions of people.
Did it start since the Biden administration, sir, or before the Biden administration?
The Biden administration.
Illegal immigration?
Illegal immigration, yes.
Is it before the Biden administration or
no, the
from
Biden administration created? I mean, the immigration is an old problem, but it was.
So it's an old problem, sir.
Yes, but it was made way worse by the Biden administration policy that the American people made it a top issue. See, historically, American national elections, immigration is not a top issue. But the Biden administration keeping the border open, letting in millions of people, made it a top immigration issue. So when you ask American people what are the issues that you care about, the economy and immigration. Now, what Trump is doing actually is focusing on the those with a criminal conviction, and these are removable. Actually, there's no question about it. And he's focusing on removing them, and he's focusing on removing people.
Okay, perfect, sir. Mr. Rubin, could you kindly please discuss the answer of Dr. Al-Khatib, and let's make it a three-way discussion to understand the situation better, sir?
Yeah, look, immigration clearly was a major political issue for Donald Trump and one that helped him to win. But the remedy is not what my colleague is describing. What Donald Trump is now doing is terminating asylum. He is trying to end birthright citizenship in the United States, which means that for undocumented individuals, which means that if you are born in the United States, he wants to say that you are no longer an American, which of course is deeply unconstitutional.
Is this applicable, Mr. Rubin, that you're no more American if you're born in the United States?
Not now, no. But that is an executive order that he put forward. That he wants.
What do you want to say, Dr. Khatib?
Yeah, what Trump is saying, and this is actually, there is a question mark over it, a small one, if he can do it.
Are you with the idea of
there's a major question mark.
What Trump is saying,
it's in the Constitution that any individual born in the territory of the United States, except for exemptions from diplomatic children, is an American. Here's the issue. What President Trump is trying to do right now is to enact the most aggressive anti-immigrant policy in the history of the United States, and to deport undocumented individuals, but also to stop immigration and to stop individuals from around the world from coming even legally to the United States by ending refugee programs, terminating flights, for example, of thousands of individuals who had just been approved for coming to the United States. They terminated, canceled those flights, and are not letting them into the United States. So this is not just about a secure border. This is about an anti-foreigner, anti-immigrant policy overall.
Okay, Mr. Dr. Al-Khatib, of course you can answer.
Yeah, what Trump, I mean, there are many components of immigration. It's not only one issue, it's many issues. But unfortunately, my sense is that the way that the Biden administration dealt with it is the reason we have what we have today. But as to citizenship, yes, on the face of it, the 14th Amendment says that anybody born in the U.S. is a U.S. citizen, and there was a Supreme Court case from the time of the Chinese exclusion era, where there's a Chinese born in the U.S. and his parents could not become citizens, but the court said it doesn't matter. His parents could not be citizens. He is a U.S. citizen because he was born in the U.S. But what Trump administration is claiming now is saying it's different now. The parents of that child that was born in the U.S. and the Supreme Court said he is a U.S. citizen, were legally in this country. But he's saying, well, if they're not legally in this country, then it's a different kind of situation. And he's trying to beat the Supreme Court. Yeah.
That's accurate the way my colleague just described it, but it's an incredibly radical position.
Exactly, radical, sir.
Highly radical position.
Yes, but the Supreme Court has the final say on what the Constitution means and doesn't mean. Let the Supreme Court decide on it, and I will move on.
Sir, how long will it take for the court to decide every single decision that Trump makes on daily basis?
Yeah, that's what you get when you vote for Trump.
How long? How long? It's a question I'm asking. It's not my business.
Well, this is our system, and it's a good system with all of its flaws. But I think that it's a real problem when we elect political leaders who only want the court to support them. We should have political leaders who are able to get support from the political community, the people elected to represent the American people in Congress. And that means bipartisan action. And I worry now that already President Trump, by taking these unilateral extreme actions, radical actions, is ending his honeymoon and not building consensus. And then he'll rely on the courts to somehow tell the American people what is in their best interests.
Dr. Khatib, do you see his ending his honeymoon?
And I don't think that Trump has honeymoon.
Why, sir, don't you think that?
I disagree with that. I think they're open to working with him on some issues, they said, but I don't think there's anything honey between the Democrats and Trump. I mean, Trump is toxic for them. And he came back with a vengeance.
You said Trump is toxic, sir, or did I listen wrong?
To the Democrats, he's toxic. I mean,
to the Democrats is toxic, and to the Republicans, sir.
The Republicans is a savior. It's like Jesus.
I would hold out a little bit. That most of these appointments will get through Congress. We did see bipartisan votes just last week. So I think that the Democrats have been waiting to see what Donald Trump does, but it seems like he's now giving Democrats a lot of reason to oppose him.
Mr. Rubin, you're waiting to see, as Democrats, what President Biden is going to be doing. And if anything you dislike, are you going to be taking any action then, or there's nothing you can do about it?
Yeah, no, I think, look, for the Democratic Party, this is a very low moment. It's a difficult moment. President Biden did not serve a second term. Kamala Harris did not win. And that's very hard to take. And then, of course, both chambers of Congress are in Republican hands. But, I think that sort of that depression amongst Democrats that I've noticed around Washington is starting to lift. And there's a sense that there are many different levers of power, as we discussed, from civil society and groups around the country, of citizens to governors, to, frankly, large chunks of Congress. Remember, the Republican House is only a majority by 5 and the Senate by 3. And there will be elections in less than 2 years now. So I think Democrats are getting off of the floor, as we say, and trying to find ways to communicate, because that's the number one power Democrats have, to communicate to the American people about how the Trump actions hurt them. That's the key. And then, of course, to lay out a vision of difference. But it has been a very
Mr.
difficult period
Joel,
for
I'm going to be
Democrats.
meeting you a lot in this program or other programs. We're going to be discussing this. But now, this is a question to both of you, please, and I need an answer for both of you. Before I wrap up this episode, unfortunately, because I wanted to spend more time with you both. How are Trump's decisions impacting the de-escalation efforts to war-torn Lebanon and Gaza, considering his administration's historical problematic policies regarding the Middle East, sir? And I need please concrete answers to this very important question at this point. And today, as we talk, and what's going on in the Middle East, which is unacceptable, sir.
You want me to go first?
Please.
Mr. Joel,
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Khatib first, because Mr. Joel had the... I took the... Mr. Ahsan first. Doctor.
Yes, I agree with what Mr. Rubin said. Actually, we have a system of checks and balances, and Trump is going to have pushback at all levels. But as to the Middle East, look, it's very clear. Trump is very transparent. He said on the campaign trail, he promised 2 things. Number 1 is ceasefire, and he delivered it. We have it in
So
Lebanon.
you said Trump is very transparent, huh?
Yes. As to the Middle East, he made it clear. He said he wants the ceasefire and he wants the peace. He wants peace in the Middle East, right? The Abrahamic peace, and that's what he's working on now. He's going to have ideas that are going to have pushback. For example, the idea of moving Palestinians from Gaza is a non-starter. I mean, Egypt doesn't want it. Jordan doesn't want it. The Palestinians themselves don't want it. Most of the world doesn't support it. The international law doesn't support it. So that these are just ideas. This is the guy who wrote the book, The Art of the Deal. Everything to him is the deal. You bring proposals. You have a starting position that's high ceiling and all that. So these are just...
Okay, Mr. Joel, I want your answer, please, as soon as possible, because I have to wrap up with this episode.
Well, the Trump team effectively negotiated a continuation of the Lebanon ceasefire for another 3 weeks.
Do you see a ceasefire, sir? Today, did you see a ceasefire?
They have extended the ceasefire with Lebanon between Israel and Hezbollah by 3 weeks. And
if
President
I had time,
Trump,
I would have asked you why, but I'm sorry, I'm running out of time. Continue, sir.
But the last thing I'll say, a couple of things, is the first call President Trump made was to Mohammed bin Salman. He has Prime Minister Netanyahu visiting Washington next week. It's clear that he has an interest in finding a deal in the region to calm things down. And the Palestinian, the Hamas-Israel ceasefire continues to hold. But this is the easy part. This is building off of the work of the Biden administration for the last half year. The hard part will come when they have to really make decisions about what the United States can live with in some kind of deal. So watch this space, but it is clear that President Trump is interested and cares about calming down this region.
Sir, I'm going to promise you to watch cautiously what's going on in the region, sir, especially in the Middle East. And unfortunately, I have to wrap up this episode with my dear guests, Mr. Joel Rubin, a former U.S. State Department advisor, and Dr. Ahsan Al-Khatib, a political science professor. Of course, I thank you for the fascinating analysis, for your informative, valuable insights. Can't you thank and fruitful, of course, discussion. I cannot thank you enough. President Trump's second term kicks off with a whirlwind of executive orders, controversial pardons, and bold policy shifts. Let us look at this report about the latest developments in U.S. orders and how it has reshaped both domestic and foreign policy, igniting a mix of celebration and, of course, let's watch. Dear viewers, that brings us to the end. There is a technical problem that took place. I'm very sorry, and thank you very much to our dear guests, and we wish, of course, to see them again and continue our discussion. That brings us to the end of today's episode of Think Tank. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more updates and Qnews.